Hey, it's Mike Hambright. Welcome back to another exciting Flip Nerd VIP show. Today I have with me Jason Medley, who is the founder of a really cool group called Collective Genius. Has a lot of gurus and just big name folks, really high-level real estate investors. And he really has his ear to the ground with the real estate investing community because of his relationships with some of the top guys across the country. Before we get started with our interview with Jason, let's take a moment to recognize our sponsors. RealtyMogul.com is an online marketplace for real estate investing, connecting borrowers and capital from accredited and institutional investors. Get a rehab loan fast and close in as little as 10 days. Rates start as low as 9%. We'd also like to thank National Real Estate Insurance Group, the nation's leading provider of insurance to the residential real estate investor market. From individual properties to large-scale investors, National Real Estate Insurance Group is ready to serve you. Please note, the views and opinions expressed by the individuals in this program do not necessarily reflect those of FlipNerd.com or any of its partners, advertisers, or affiliates. Please consult professionals before making any investment or tax decisions, as real estate investing can be risky. Jason, good to have you on.
Good to be here, my friend. Looking forward to it. Let's rock the house. Let's rock the house.
Yeah. So, hey, it's good to meet you. You came highly recommended from a few other guests we've had. So we haven't actually met before, but I can already tell we click a little bit. So I'm excited to learn a little bit more about you and what you've got going on. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Okay. Since we're talking about real estate, I'll just kind of give you guys my background in short. I've been in the real estate and finance business for about 14 years now. I started back in 2000. I was a mortgage broker, and that's really when I kind of stepped into entrepreneurship. Was back in 2000. Started working on my own and did really well. Thought I was cool. Was crushing it, doing 75 to 100 loans a month. Had 17 loan officers, 3 processors. Just thought I was knocking it out of the park. And then the market changed. And that taught me a very valuable lesson in which I think we should absolutely cover on today. And that is that when the market changed or the market crashed, I'm in Tampa, which is obviously, Florida, California.
You get hit hard.
When the market changed, it taught me a valuable lesson. It helped me realize that I was not a good marketer. My livelihood was dependent upon market forces versus my ability to lead generate. And so that was a very valuable lesson, and I became a student of marketing at the time. And but through that, kind of went from doing loans over to flipping short sales, and then as the market began to eradicate what we call dry funding, meaning if you were flipping a house the same day you bought it, you could use your end buyer's money. As that got eradicated, I saw an opportunity, and that's when what's called transactional funding was born.
Right.
And for about 5 years, that was a really, really big, substantial business. I surely enjoyed it. We were lending 75 to 85 million bucks a year at 2 points, which was lovely.
Yeah. Hey, take a real fast second and just tell people what transactional funding, for those that don't know.
Sure. And a quick example, and it's predominant in short sales. So let's say you're negotiating with a bank to buy a property for $400,000, and that negotiation takes 6 months. Well, while you're negotiating to buy it at $400,000, you find someone who's willing to buy it from you for $500,000. And with transactional funding, when you listen closely to what it is, transactional funding, it means the underwriting guidelines are driven strictly by the transaction. And we didn't care if you were from Yale or jail or had a paycheck or were unemployed. If you were buying something for $400,000 and reselling it the same day for $500,000, you needed that money, that $400,000, for a couple of hours. All right. And so I had a company called iVisionary Transactional Funding. We would lend that $400,000 to investors for just a couple of hours until you could resell for the higher price. And so, again, the lending decision was strictly based on the fact that you had it resold at a higher price. And,
it was effectively the equivalent of hard money, but just a micro, real short term.
Yep. Yeah. Usually just 1 day. And so through that lending, got really, really, connected with a lot of high level caliber investors, because I would identify this guy's coming to me for 4 deals a month. This guy coming from 7 deals a month. And then in addition, the way I grew that transactional funding business is I would fly out. I'd get on a plane and fly to big educational events and kind of team up with folks who were teaching how to flip these or how to structure these types of deals. And so you teach them, I'll fund them, right? So I just got very connected to a lot of high caliber investors, high caliber educators, also people who were both. Yeah. And from there I started what is now really my sole focus, which is the Collective Genius Mastermind. And it's a mastermind. I've got about 64, 65 of the top, and I should say top elite members from across the country. Guys that flip anywhere from typically 50 to up to 600 deals a year. I've got guys in there that run funds from 15 to 130 million bucks a year on the fund side. A real high caliber group, and we get together about once a quarter, and we share everything that is working, and we also share our problems. And we help each other overcome those problems. I kind of have a board of directors, if you will, of the who's who in the real estate investing space. Yeah,
that's great. I mean, I don't know if you know, our tagline includes the word mastermind for Flip Nerd, and it's a very different level. I mean, there's no doubt that if you read Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, some of those books, they'll tell you that the ideal mastermind size is probably no more than 10 people. That doesn't mean there's not benefits to having a group of thousands or 10,000 people.
Yeah.
You share your information on a different level of intimacy. What I'm doing here is very different from what you're doing there, but I'm just trying to share people like you with the world and people that follow us and stuff like that to learn from it, and that'll come back around to you some way, and probably to me too. So that word gets thrown around a lot, but I think it's just the tone of sharing information to help everybody win.
Yeah, and it's one thing to share. It's a whole other thing. We were jabbering for a few minutes before we jumped on here. It's the connections, really, that the cake would be the sharing of information. The icing, though, are the connections that people make.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about Collective Genius and how that works. I know you don't want to probably drop any names, so I won't ask you to. But tell us about how it works and how you're structured and how everybody wins in that group.
Sure. Like I said, we get together once a quarter. It's an invitation application only type of mastermind. It is, again, strictly for, like I said, people who are typically doing between 50 to 600 deals a year, or if you run a large fund, or you're a tax strategist, who can work with people that have money. Yeah. Because we do have some service providers, but key there, it's invitation application only. If something you want to check out, you're more than welcome to go and learn more about it at thecollectivegenius.com. But I actually don't mind, really kind of elaborating. When I talk about the connections, I think the best thing to do rather than talk about the information we share would be to kind of elaborate on how it's really the business that gets done inside the group, not just the sharing of information.
Right.
And, if I were to kind of give you an example of that, I would say, I've got guys in my group who, like for right now, and a perfect example would be Phoenix, Arizona. The market is starting to really get soft in Phoenix, okay? Yeah. And you would think, how in the world will some guys in Phoenix hook up with some guys in Cleveland and start doing business together? Perfect example of that would be Mike Lowry, a guy in my group. He's probably done 200 deals a year for the last 3 or 4 years out of Phoenix, just a beast. Comes in, meets a guy named Joe Lieber out of Cleveland, right? And we call him the ghettoologist because he's got about 150 rentals. 150 rentals are probably all under worth $40,000. Yeah. But the guy makes a ton of cash flow, and you think, well, how in the world do some guys from Phoenix and Cleveland end up hooking up, right? And so, after having made a fortune in Phoenix, Mike and his partner fly out to Cleveland, and in between a very short period of time of our meetings, which is about 90 days, they had closed on 6 deals with Joe, had another 21 under contract, and we're shooting to buy 100 deals from Joe. So, how does those connections end up from a monetization standpoint? You got 100 deals, throwing off some serious cash from Mike and Avi out of Phoenix, and then with Joe, who also owns the brokerage in addition to his rentals, he's going to run almost 100 transactions through just one connection inside of the Collective Genius. So that I think giving an example of how the connections work is probably better than hey, we share information.
Sure. Yeah. And I think whenever you're tied to a bunch of guys like that, or I shouldn't say guys, there's probably maybe some females in there, but a group of people like that are smart as hell, willing to open up and share anything, you pretty much have your ear to the ground of what's going on in the market. And so what's the collective genius that's come out of your group as to the phenomena that's going on right now? I know it's different in every market, but there's some markets that are pretty tight right now in terms of on the buy side.
Yeah. There are definitely some markets that are pretty tight on the buy side. And if I were to give you my best description of what's going on is we've been in a for lack of a better term a analytical sterile market from an investor standpoint. What do I mean by that? When I say analytical, if you've gotten in the game in the last 5 to 7 years, all you had to do was analyze deals and make an offer. If you're going to the auction, or you are picking deals off MLS, or you're slapping them up off of HUD Home Store or auction.com, all you're really having to do is analyze the deal, make an offer. And then, so it's analytical in that respect. It's sterile in respect that there's usually not a human being on the other side. It's not a homeowner, it's a bank, right? Or an entity giving you an answer.
Right.
Okay. And so the danger in that I see right now is, as these markets are frothy, and a lot of them are, right now if you're playing in that space, an analytical sterile space, you're often competing against other people, not to see who will make the most, but to see who's willing to make the least amount of money, if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
In that type of environment. And so I think a lot of those markets, the writing's on the wall. You know, statistics are going to show you markets are starting to slow down. One of the things I've learned from having insight to, like 64, 65 different markets across the country through my members, is there are certain markets that when they catch cold, if they decide to sneeze, the rest of the country is going to feel. And that's typically Arizona, meaning Phoenix, and then some places in Southern California. And those markets are already starting to slow down, and I see it. It's going to come graduate across the country. So the question is, if you're a full-time investor, that's what you do. It's not like you're going to go find something else. So how do you react to it?
Right.
What do you do? And
tell us, man. Tell us.
Well, let me first tell you that I think when you start to feel that pinch, I think there's going to be a time frame that you should be prepared for. And what I mean by that is, I think a couple of things are going to happen. Right now the markets are hot. And when the buyers start to fade, which they are a lot already across the country in many markets, on the retail side, if you're a rehabber, retailing the first-time home buyer or whatever it may be, when you start to feel that pinch, there's going to be a while before the sellers, the bank, everybody else says, oh yeah, we're willing to take a cheaper price, right? So they're going to be a little bit unreasonable. It's going to be harder to get deals. And then as it gets harder to get deals, you're going to realize, if my deals are tight here, where do I go and get the deals? And we're going to have to go back and get old school and go seller direct, right? Distressed situations, distressed homeowners. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to have a period where sellers, and I want to specify, a lot of the institutions will hold on and want more than you're willing to pay. And then you're going to have a period of time where a lot of investors who've been focused in a analytical sterile environment will say, what am I going to do for leads, because I can't buy these and make any money, right? And so they're going to try and switch over to doing lead generation, all right? And so what will happen is, the guys who are crushing it doing lead gen, which is, the main focus there is direct mail, is that environment's going to get more crowded, and you're going to have more people going after the same deal. And for a while those two dynamics are happening with the seller, and then more competitive in the seller direct market, it's going to hurt a little bit, right? But I think what will happen is, sellers will come back to earth, and then what will happen is, there are going to be a lot of investors who've been in that analytical sterile environment, just buying by placing bids at auction or off HUD Home Store. They will not be able to transition into what it's going to take to be successful in the foregoing marketplace, which is you're going to have to become a marketer.
It's a hustle business, right?
Well, you're going to have to become a marketer, all right? Yeah. And then once you become a marketer, which means you can convert leads, then generate leads, then you got to convert those leads, which means you or your organization is going to have to be sales driven, right? like you just mentioned, you interviewed one of my members, Todd Toback. He runs a sales organization, a marketing and sales organization. The vehicle, the conduit that he uses are houses, right? But I can tell you right now that guy would tell you, I run a marketing and sales organization. If you said that to most investors, they would look at you cross-eyed, right? And I'm telling you that the people who are going to be who are successful now and are going to be successful in the future are gonna. You ever heard read the book Who Moved My Cheese?
Oh yeah,
that's coming.
Yeah,
it's coming.
Yeah,
there's no doubt about it. The easy days of strolling over the computer in your underwear and flip flops and just picking off deals off MLS or shooting a bid down to the auction. I'm not saying it's over. I'm not saying that should be a vehicle that you throw away, but I'm telling you, it's just going to keep compressing and compressing and compressing.
Right.
And then you have a choice. You got to go generate your own leads. Bottom line.
How big of a role do you think the hedge funds have been playing in this?
Well, I mean,
depends a lot on the market.
Yeah, depending on your market, which quite honestly, in most major metropolitan areas across the country that had decent cap rates, they've been there, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I've seen guys just get crushed, and that's a perfect example of what we're talking about. You should not have one source of leads. Okay, I know guys who they're cruising for 5 years, they're buying down at the auction, things are easy greasy, no problem. The hedge funds show up and pay highest and best for everything, and they are on their heels with smoke coming off. Like, what am I going to do? Right. So I think the hedge funds have affected a lot of investors in bad ways. I also know that if you were able to create relationships with those folks and provide them with off-market deals, it's been beautiful for some other people. Yeah. And so, but the hedge funds are exiting the building in a lot of the major markets now. Yeah. And they're heading to a lot of the markets that can still deliver a decent cap rate. A lot of Midwestern markets that aren't sexy, like the Ohios and the Indianas and the Louisianas. Right. That don't get a lot of buzz in the paper. So, but I think I think it depends on which side of the coin you're on, whether how it's affected you with hedge funds being in your marketplace. Yeah.
Absolutely. So tell us some more about Collective Genius in terms of how do you? I know you've built up an elite group of folks here.
Sure.
How do you keep that interesting, and how do people continue to get value out of year after year after year?
Sure. Keeping it interesting is easy. It's because of the market that I play in. I mean, if you've been investing for any period of time, how often does the real estate market change? I mean, in my opinion, every 6 months it's something, right?
Yep.
It doesn't matter. Every 6 months something's happening that changes how we do business, right?
Yeah.
And those changes are what facilitate the value, because when you are trying to figure out what happens. Oh, the hedge funds came to town. What do I do?
Right.
Well, if you've got a guy in a market where the hedge funds have already been in his market for 9 months, and you can just say, hey, how did you handle this? What are you doing now to continue to do big volume and make a lot of money? And he says, oh, that's no problem. Let me tell you exactly what I've done. And better yet, I've already done it and systematized it. Let me just give you everything so you don't have to stress about it. That's how I provide value.
Right.
But my members are the ones that provide value. I'll be very
sure.
I consider myself blessed from a leadership perspective in really knowing how to move the chess pieces and connect the dots. But I provide very little of the content, if you will, myself. The way they get value year after year it's pretty simple. We talk about return on investment. My membership is you come to check out the first meeting for free, but if you're a fit for the group and we're a fit for you, it is an annual membership of $15,000. It's pretty simple. The way you get value is you look at it after your membership and you say, I spent 15 and I made a couple hundred from my connections or the knowledge I got. Does it make sense? If that's the case, obviously it does. If I were to give you specific examples of what that looks like, a guy who you just said you recently interviewed is one of my members, Matt Terrio. He's a guy who came immediately inked deals with several of my other members. He does something similar to what you do. He's got a big podcast. He has buyers for turnkey real estate coming out his ears. Not enough product. Well, there's 7 guys in my group that do turnkey real estate and markets he's interested in. I make those introductions. We hang out for 3 days. They get connected. They draw up contracts, and now before you know it, deals are going back. Buyers and properties are going back and forth, and money's being made.
Yep.
You know, it's pretty simple. You know, it's the value is always there because these guys make a lot of money together.
Yeah.
You know, Mike Zlotnick, a guy who runs a fund in my group. Literally last week, another guy out of Georgia, King Corsini, put a $250,000 in his fund.
Wow.
You know, it's just, you know, a guy like myself. I'm getting ready to invest a chunk of change in one of my members' funds that does distressed notes. Tom Dunkel and Joe Downs. So there's just the connections are, you know, you and I were talking before we got on the phone. The value, you know, if you want to look at value, it comes down to ROI, and it's pretty simple. You invest this much. If you made that times 20 or that times 30, it makes sense.
Absolutely. So with a background in finance, in the mortgage side, transactional funding, what do you see? I mean, it's funny because you coming out of 2008, 2009, you kind of thought, man, we're never going back to this again. But it feels like we're back there again, doesn't it? Sloppy money, silly money coming in from, you know, other states that don't understand what's going on in your market, maybe if you're outside of California. And, I mean, does it feel like the banks are loosening up? I've had, you know, lenders offering me more money than I could ever use, and I just have to say that's awesome, but I just don't need it. I don't want to tell you I need it and then I can't use it.
Yeah.
Does it feel like we've just come almost full circle?
I tell you, you know, people have a short-term memory.
Yeah.
I would exercise I'm on the paper side of the business. I don't do hard assets. I don't flip houses. I only carry notes, hard money, invest in funds, etc. So, but I can tell you this: if I was on the hard asset side, with where the market is right now, I would really be looking into my business. And looking for I call it doing a fire drill. Yeah. And because you can say, oh, are we headed back? Well, I can tell you right now, if the market shifts and by the time you realize it has, and I'm telling you, I think it's coming, you got to be prepared. If you're prepared, it'll be no problem. The way to get prepared is to do what I call it a fire drill. And we do this probably about once a year in the Collective Genius is sit down, turn everything else off. Your employees, your people, your wife, your kids, lock yourself into your room for a half a day or a day and really poke holes in your business. Where are your weak spots? Do you have only one source of funding? Do you have only one source of leads? Are you too dependent on a single employee or team member? Really poke holes in your business and figure out if the market were to change, how would you need to react, right? If houses started taking 3 times as long to sell or whatever it may be, you got to get down, you got to get dirty, take a look at your business. Is there a place, can you run leaner, right? What are the gaping holes in your business? And because those are easy. When things are good, the money's flowing and you're cracking, a bunch of deals every month, it's easy to remove yourself from the realities of what could be happening in your business,
right.
But they're not painful yet because nobody's come up and poked at the at the scab yet,
Yeah.
So,
and it changes fast too.
It does change fast.
Yeah.
I made a post on Facebook today talking about, hey, I don't want my message to be misunderstood. There's ample opportunity. There's tons of people are going to continue to make lots of money, but it will be done differently. Is what I'm getting at. But I had a gentleman respond to the Facebook post, basically kind of like, dude, you're crazy. Nothing can stop the market right now. And I was just like, that's the guy who in 6 months is going to be like,
what happened to me?
Yeah, you can't be ignorant to it. The appreciation cannot go on forever while incomes are not growing to match it or what it takes to buy the average home.
Right.
And so when things hit that threshold, which I feel like we're at, you got to start thinking about what's next.
Yeah.
And,
look, it's a smart thing to do anyway. I think a lot of folks, I talk to guests about this all the time. if you're just a wholesaler and you're just a one-legged stool, I mean, you're more prone to something bad happening if you don't have other exit strategies or other ways to shift your business. I mean, if you've really, or like you said, one source of leads, if you're so focused on something that you can't change with the market, then you're at a higher risk than the person that's kind of balanced out.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it since I've been running this group for like the last 5 years. When I first started 5 years ago, everybody in there was a short seller, right? Like, I mean, not everybody, but the 80% of the people in there were short sales.
Yeah. Well, every real estate agent in the country was a short sale expert. So
yeah. And now, you see that progression. Short sales are getting harder. They're no fun. You take forever. And then I see my guys migrate over into wholesaling, then more wholesaling into rehabbing, and then it's just bottom line is the market's always changing. Another change is coming. It's already taking place in some of the big markets, that the hottest markets, the Arizonas, the Southern Calis. It ain't coming. It's already here.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I've learned over the last 14 years of being in this business, what starts there usually spreads east,
right?
And so you just got to be prepared. I encourage anybody who's listening to look at the holes in your business, and be honest with yourself, right? Sit down, slow down, look at the holes in your business and figure out a plan to address them and start filling those holes right now. And I would encourage you to be more careful in how you evaluate your deals right now. Here's the thing: when you reach a point where appreciation stops, if the market's blazing and you make a mistake, either in value or say on the rehab side of it, well, it's okay because the appreciation will often fix your mistake.
Yeah.
Right. When you reach a point where that appreciation starts to come, or in some cases, stop or reverse, you don't have that same luxury anymore, and so you have to be. I would try to focus on fewer, better deals versus just running and gunning, buying everything you get your hands on right now. Because if the appreciation is slowing down, you don't have that buffer to allow yourself the same mistakes in valuation judgments.
Yeah, that's good stuff. If you had a new guy that listened to everything we've just been talking about over the past 5 or 10 minutes, they may be scared out of their mind to get started in real estate investing. And like you said, there's still a lot of opportunity. But what advice would you give a new person that's looking to get in to a market that may be challenging?
I think if I were going to give some advice to a new person, it would be, and it's all relevant. I mean, there are new people who've been successful in previous life and they have money,
right.
And then there's somebody who's bootstrapping. So that's somewhat of a tough question, because I would say that, I would not want to go after the deals that everyone else is going after, because a lot of those deals require cash. If you're buying at auction, if you're buying at, MLS, if it's competitive, a lot of times the cash offer is going to win. If you're new and don't have money, you're kind of bootstrapping. I would probably focus more on the wholesaling side. And what I would do is I would probably, if you've got some money, I would mail directly to non-owner occupied basically landlords who've had either free or clear property or have a mortgage on it that was originated more than 10 years ago. Now, let's say you don't have any money for marketing. All right, none. What would you do? I'll give you a cool strategy that you're going to have a little time on your hands, but let's say you got no real money, okay? How do you find a really, really stressed out landlord? Well, eviction notices are often public knowledge or public record, if you will. Either yourself or sometimes if you have somebody in your county who has a foreclosure service, they provide data to investors.
Right.
Either you could, or maybe that person would be willing to farm the notices for you for landlords who filed eviction notices. Right now, I would target those folks because that's a small audience. It's very targeted. It shouldn't take you a lot of money. And let's say you're don't have any money to go and actually mail those people. More often than not, you can get your hands on a copy of the eviction notice, which often has their cell phone on it, right? Because the eviction notice, you're saying, hey, if you want to talk about this, call me, right?
Right.
So if you got enough junk in your pants to pick up the phone, you can actually pick up the phone and call those landlords who are filing eviction notices. A lot of times you can even research and find out when their court date is, right? You could show up down at the court. They're in the court dealing with some ding-a-ling not paying their rent. They might just want to dump the house, right? Yeah. And then I would work on assigning, or I should say getting that property under contract, which if you go that route shouldn't really take a lot of money. And then you think, okay, well, now that I've actually got the property under contract, how am I going to sell it? And this may sound rudimentary or elementary, but Craigslist, going to your local auction. If you still have an auction that is public, if you will, that's like at the courthouse steps where there's human beings bidding versus online.
Right.
You got a good deal under contract. Most of those folks down there are rehabbers buying those deals. They pay cash. Yep. You go down there, look for a buyer to assign that property to. Go to your RIAs to somebody to assign that property to. There's ample ways to find cash buyers without spending money.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I've never actually done any of that myself, and you got me thinking here. But I actually do. I have a good friend that's a fairly large property manager, and he got a lot of his business by showing up at the eviction court and handing out flyers like, "You want to never come here again? Well, maybe you should consider talking to me."
Yeah,
so
right.
That's good.
Exactly. It's a good way to get started if you don't have a lot of capital and you want to find some folks that are motivated.
Yeah. Awesome.
With that said, if you got a dream and you're listening to this, or you're working a job, or you're unhappy with what you're doing, don't let anything stop you. There is nothing more rewarding to me in life than to have the freedom of doing it my way. And real estate can absolutely give you the power to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. I live a incredibly blessed life with massive control of my time. And so if you're listening to this and you've been listening and you're not doing anything, take action, make it happen, go do something. You'll live in pain the rest of your life if you don't go after your dream.
Yeah,
now you're still going to have some pain when you go after your dream, but it'll be for a short term, and then you'll live the life of your dreams versus being in agony working for somebody else or going that route the rest of your days.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, Jason, I wish we could talk longer. We run out of time here.
Yeah, sure.
Real quick, tell everybody how to learn more about how to get a hold of you, or how to connect with you, and how to get a hold of to learn more about Collective Genius.
Sure. I'm not a real public guy. I don't have a bunch of fancy websites. I am extremely focused.
What's your Pinterest account? Account?
I can't spell Pinterest. So with that, I will say I'm extremely focused. The Collective Genius is my baby. It's all I do. I don't have a fancy website. My website is strictly for people that are interested in coming. If you're interested in coming, again, you can go to thecollectivegenius.com. It'll break down the type of people that are there, the relationships that are created, how it's formatted. From there, if you want to learn more, basically you go to the next page. And what I've done is I've done an interview. It's a video interview, kind of like what we're doing, but instead of 2 of us, there's 6 of us. Yeah. Kind of like you see on the news. And I just go around the bases and ask everybody how being involved in the group has impacted their lives and their business. And then from there, if you want to talk to me, you go to the next step, which is an application. My assistant will buzz you once we get the application to set up a time for us to speak. And then we go from there. Awesome. I do want to stress, though, it is application invitation only. I don't want someone to. Everybody's time is valuable. Please don't waste your time. Unless you're playing at a high level, it'll probably be a waste of your time. And I say that to be helpful, not to, because I don't want you to go waste your time. If you're playing at a high level, it'll be a wise use to your time. If you're not, it'll just it won't be the best use of your time. So, but
awesome.
Yeah, sure.
Well, thanks for your insights, Jason. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, Mike. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to talking some more soon.
Yeah, you got it.
All right, buddy. Take care. Have a good day.
Sure.
Bye-bye. Are you a member of FlipNerd.com, the most robust real estate investing platform in existence? where you can find off-market wholesale deals and great vendors literally in your market. You can get access to advice from experts and learn about local clubs and events right in your backyard. If not, please visit flipnerd.com and register for a free account. You can register in less than a minute. It's pretty much the coolest site that's ever existed in the real estate investing industry, so get on over to flipnerd.com.